Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be like no chess video you have ever seen. I hope that's not hyperbolic. It might be, but really, ladies and gentlemen, the way this game ends that I'm about to show you is unbelievable and had hundreds of people baffled. We are, of course, in the pool on chess.com. Please don't harass these people. I just haven't changed their usernames, or maybe I have. Anyway, so where did I find this game? Context. I was playing Improvers Sunday. That is a part of the club Improvers, where people are wanting to improve at chess for 2025, and they were having a Sunday arena, play 4 rounds of rapid games. Didn't go well for me, but there's a cool clip about it that I posted yesterday, made by my friend Asher. And I saw this game. It was still on when I'd finished my round, and it was being played by a South African. And I'm like, well, I see you. I'm gonna go check out this game. And I saw the end of this game, and I was like, what happened? And what makes it even weirder is how this game goes. So, how does this game go? Knight to f3. It starts with a ready. d6. e4, c6. So, some weird stuff so far. Black being very uncommittal. But they are 2132. And white 1600. So, this should be a fairly high level. d4, taking space in the center. Now, knight to f6, counterattacking. And knight to c3. But queen out, looking already to win this pawn because of the pin. But this is already better for white if they simply play e5. e5 is better for white, and now the only move is like knight to e4, at which point white has a couple of options. Queen d3 does pretty well. E takes d6 is pretty good. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, if e takes d6, knight takes d6. Okay, sorry, lost my train of thought there. Chess game. Alright. This is probably the best thing to play after queen f5, but white plays bishop to d3, defending the center pawn. Can't really complain. Now we get e5 for black, and we get takes in the center. And it's a good trade because black kind of has impeded the development of their knight, although they will be able to get the bishops out still pretty quickly. And we get castles from white. Bishop b4, putting pressure on the knight, I suppose. Like, there's no king here. The king is already castled, so there's no pin. Like, this is still defended, well defended. We now get bishop d2, just so that you don't damage the structure. And now short castles. And now, maybe if you're white, you want to maybe play h3 to not allow this bishop to come here. Yeah, or a3. So one of these moves looks pretty good. You can also play like queen e1, getting stuff this way and stepping out of any pins along this. But we get rook e1, which over defends this center pawn, probably, for my liking, and now allows black a moment. The best move for black here is to play queen to c7, defending this pawn, which is hanging, and allowing for the bishop to come out and then the knight. You can't really play knight here because then you impede this bishop. But we get bishop to g4, pinning. So now this is not hanging as of yet, but now we can get a3. Takes, queen drops back. It doesn't. This is a very interesting tactical sequence that we get here. So we takes, and you would think queen c7, right? Just defending this pawn, which isn't really defended because you've got two attackers, but actually only one because pin. But we get a very interesting tactical sequence here. So we get bishop takes c3. Now we get bishop takes f3. Bishop takes f3. Both queens are hanging. And we proceed with taking both. Makes sense so far. Now we capture this bishop back. So material is level. Knight b d7. What we've got here is bishops versus knights. If black wants to really play well this game, they need to keep as many pawns on the board as possible and keep the position very closed. White has got a sizable advantage, plus 1.7, because like their bishops are making a more meaningful impact, and they will be more easily able to win the game. The knights don't have good squares, the rook's open, all good stuff so far. So we get f3, just securing the center. Knight c5 hits the bishop. There's always considerations now if you want to trade. White can obviously avoid trading, but for that you'd have to be very passive. So we've dropped the bishop back to target the central pawn. And look at this. You're tripping over yourself to defend all of your stuff. It's not easy. Now we get bishop e2, no longer allowing the bishop to be taken. a5, taking space on the queen side. But now rook d6. Look at this. The infiltration of the rook. Now we're going to be doubling, and this is getting very, very bad for black. Rook fe8, defending the central pawn, but allowing, just a simple doubling. But knight to f6. So we defend the central pawn. White is still better. Like, these rooks are very powerful on the only open file. This bishop exerts permanent pressure. And these knights just have no good squares to go to. They're just not in the game. So we get now b4. Maybe a little bit overcommittal. For this moment, you're a little bit overcommittal because you're opening a file for your opponent. Like, you dominate the only open file. There's no need to create another one. Yes, I know I said earlier, but you want to open the board for your bishops. Nah, not really. Yes, you could take with the bishop and then have pressure on the knight. You're not really achieving much. So b4, knight a4 is a very interesting move. Interesting is not always good. Knight to a4 is the top stockfish move. Sometimes. It depends how long you let. It's probably best to let takes. And if they want to be clever, you can drop back. And now your knight actually has access to some good squares. So, this is something to look at. The rook still can't go there. And look at the engine evaluations. Back to almost level. See? But knight a4 hits the bishop. Bishop drops back to a1. Bishop a1 is such a bizarre move, but it has to be played. You've got, it exerts pressure on this. You could go back this way, maybe, and put the argument that you want to be on this diagonal. But maybe in the future you want this diagonal open for the king. We don't know. Bishop a1 to me just seems very passive. And now h6. I can't explain to you h6. Like, this play is 21-32. I do not understand why you wouldn't, take a pawn or, your knight's trapped you, which is an interesting thing. Like, you could bring the knight back. A takes b4 makes the most sense to me. So does king f8. Defending your rook and getting the king closer to the center. Anyway, h6. What can you say? And now b5. Which is interesting. It's looking to activate pieces again. Because if takes... Whoops. But this is very hope chess. So rook ac8. Takes. And now we've got split pawn structure on both sides. But there is another open file that could be used. By both sides, by the way. Because white has a second rook. And this knight, where can it go? It's stuck. It can go back there, I suppose. And then you've got to get back to e6. Which it probably should have gone many moons ago. Now you're sitting there. I hope I haven't lost your attention. The ending to this game, as I promised, is so bizarre. You think white is winning this game, don't you? It's such a good position. Let's see. Rook b1. Knight c5. Bishop comes forward. Look at all of white's pieces activating, yet it is still only +1. We defend the pawn on f7, and now rook in. Rook b6, targeting the pawn. There's no way to defend it. We can double the rooks. Now we drop this rook back. I can't explain that move. It gives away a lot of advantage. And now we look to trade rooks, which is interesting. And now we decline the rook trade with rook db1. Rook d2, target some pawns. And now we look to trade rooks. And here, black finds the best move, which is rook e8. It doesn't look like it makes sense because trade's trade and the rook infiltrates. But you can play king to f8. And your rook is probably better than that rook. But this knight and this knight are problems for these bishops, which are going to try and get in. So, black is hanging on a thread, but they find this. Oops. Now you've got a kebab of bishops. But white finds a very nice trick here. Bishop takes e5. Which is a very, very nice move. And it just holds everything together. I don't know how long they calculated this, because after rook takes c4, you've got check, forcing the king away and check, taking the knight with check, forcing the king here, and material balance is restored once again. But I reckon white has got a better advantage. Their pawns are more mobile. This knight's hanging at the moment, so it needs to move, probably to e6. You can also play h4 as white. This knight's not hanging, sorry, the rook is defending it. h4 takes space, stops the king running out this way. but it's a very level position. But you would give the edge to white, who's had the edge the entire game. Black has never been better. Anyway, king f7, king f2 rather. Rook c2 check, forces the king out, and now we drop the knight back. This knight now is on a better square, I suppose. I've been advocating for this the whole game. It's just got more mobility. The rook can come and try and target the pawn. The bishop does stand nicely defending it, but you can close it off. Now the rook comes out, and now we bring the king. And now h4. White is playing this very well. They are outplaying someone who's, 500 rating points above them? Knight d4. I'm not crazy about knight d4, but it works. We attack the knight, check, king over, and now we attack the bishop. Bishop retreats, knight comes forward, and the king comes up. And we look to trade some pawns, and the black king is getting closer. And you're activating the black king, but you're leaving yourself weak here, but you might end up getting yourself mated. But we lose the pawn on a5, which now gives both sides a pass pawn. Both sides now have a pass pawn on the queen side, and these pawns will probably cancel out, provided pieces stay on the board. So we've got a very level position, but white is up a pawn. A pawn is a pawn. Anyway, c5. Bishop drops back, now pinning the pawn. You're going to lose the pawn. Now there is only one move here to play for black. And that move is knight e6. You just defend the pawn. And then you can push it. And then they'll push. And then you'll push. And then, you'll move your rook out the way or something. Well, black goes here. Knight to e2. And just loses the game to rook takes. And you have to trade off the rooks. And this knight may not be able to stop this pawn. And even if it does, it may come at the cost of some of these pawns. And white is completely winning. They are 2 pawns up in a bishop versus knight endgame. Like, the knight does not have the mobility to be able to stop the pawns. So we do give a check. And we do get this. Takes, takes, takes. So black wins a pawn back. And now it's a draw. Now it's a draw. How did white lose this? Where did white lose all the advantage? Alright. So here it's still winning. g5 is good. Where did they make the mistake? Was this it? Bishop d6? No, that's still fine. Taking. King h2. No, taking the pawn was bad. Taking the pawn was bad. You need to play king h2. Because when you took the pawn, you lost this. And now the knight, by some miracle, is going to get back. Anyway, so g takes h4, king takes h4, knight takes check, and the knight gets out. And now it is going to be able to stop the pawn, and black is going to have sufficient counterplay with this. And the game will just end. Because these pawns will miraculously cancel out, the knight will sacrifice itself, and you'll be left with a bishop. There's no way that white is going to win this game. Surely not. Okay, well, white's now up 2 pawns. And they may be very well winning again. But knight takes f3 is a draw. This pawn is going to be unable to promote because that is a light square. If that was a dark square, this is completely winning for white. So the players are going to get in. White's going to protect their pawn and they're going to push it. But it's an h pawn, or it's an a or an h pawn, which is notoriously drawn. And even with the addition of this bishop, it means nothing because that's a light square. You cannot get the king out the corner, and black is going to hold this, surely, right? King b7. I mean, white's going to continue to try in case black messes up. They've got 2 minutes on the clock. You never know, mouse slip, something hands you the win. And we get the pawn all the way here. Check. Here. 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 And yes, ladies and gentlemen, you saw that correctly. After king to a8, white resigned. White resigned. The game did not end in a draw. Black won this position.